Welcome to the Church Solutions Podcast, brought to you by JSL Solutions. The Church Solutions Podcast is designed to help equip you and your church in the use of technology and other tools and services. And now, here are your hosts, Steve Lacy and Phil Thompson.
We hope that you're doing well today. Welcome to another edition of the Church Solutions Podcast. My name is Phil Thompson.
And I'm Steve Lacy.
And we come to you usually every week, and we talk about tech-related things because we are a tech-related company.
We is.
And but sometimes we also talk about other things that might be outside the area of tech because we work with churches and ministries exclusively, and we're both involved. In fact, all of us with JSL Solutions are involved in our churches. So we have a real heart for ministry, and we will many times address things that will help enable volunteers, pastors, and different leaders. We feel like we have something to offer.
Yes. So what are we talking about today?
We're going to talk about this is the end of summer and the fall season's kicking in here before we know it. And this is typically a time where you get ready for newer people to come to your church. Most of the time, most of us have church, at least my church, we have new people coming all the time. But once we get into the fall, it tends to kick up. And so we're going to talk a little bit about looking at us. You want to look at yourself. You want to look at your church. And you want to ask yourself a question. Is your church an inside? There was a flea on my microphone. Sorry. So here's the question you need to ask yourself. And this is tough for many of us. But is your church an insider-focused church?
All right. And so we're going to talk about what an insider-focused church is, I guess, or we're going to go through 6 indicators of an insider-focused church.
So, yeah, and when we say inside, and I'm sure everybody listening to this podcast saying, "Oh, no, we're not an inside-focused church. We love to have new people. We love new people, and and I think we all have that desire. But I think we need to be careful because many times we will become inward and not even know it. Where there can be signs that we're moving that direction.
Okay.
That's what this podcast is getting about.
So insider focus would be a church that's focused on those that are already coming, members that are already there, and kind of setting everything up for everybody that's already a part of your church. Would that be insider focused?
And obviously you need to focus on everybody. I mean, you definitely want to give attention to your members and your longtime members and all that good stuff. But if you really want to continue to grow and reach people, you can't just be focused on yourselves because that scares other people away.
All right.
Or at least it gives them an impression that they're not really a part of the crowd or they're not welcome.
All right. So we have 6 indicators.
We do. We have 6. We'll see how far we get.
All right.
Number 1,
language.
Language. So some people may think this is being nitpicky, but the language that you and I choose.
I don't think this is nitpicky at all.
Well, I think it's important because it's how we choose to present what we're doing at church during the services, before the services, even the things we have up in our lobbies, bathrooms, signage. All that stuff has to do with, how we present our culture. And I guess if you want to call it branding, some people that's going to turn them off when we talk about branding. But the truth is everybody has got a brand.
Yeah, we're talking branding of what goes on within the church, right?
Yes.
Branding of ministries, for example, would
exactly.
be a good example, right? And how do you? And what we mean by branding is what we call children's ministry, youth ministry, men's ministry,
right?
It's very tempting to come up with some really cool names for each of these.
That's right? Hipster names or whatever. I don't know what you call it. Yeah, cool. But cool. Cool can be nice, but what you're really looking for is clarity. Clear always trumps cute or cool. So you're always better off just calling something what it is.
Oh, yeah?
Well, that would be my opinion. I don't know.
I guess we may be guilty of this at our church. I mean, we've got, well, I'm not sure what it's, actually has a new name now. We have AIM. and we used to have the Edge, and we had I can't even think of some of these past names, but they were ministry names. And if you were an insider, you went, oh, the Edge. Oh, that's where my youth go. They're part of the Edge. Yeah. But as opposed to saying the youth ministry.
Well, and here's you could probably compromise a little bit on this. If you have Edge in signage or something, it needs to say youth ministry somewhere within that sign, I would think.
Right.
So, and then when you're addressing it in announcements or program guides or videos or wherever you're putting it up on screens, they can have their own logo.
They can have a logo, a name, but you got to have some clarity. Otherwise, people go, the Edge. Oh, that's the seniors group. I'm going to so I show up on Wednesday night for the Edge and find out that I'm in the wrong place. Huh?
Exactly. You should have been in the grumpy old people group.
That was
the grumpy group. The grumpy group. See, that's a great group. But yeah, the bottom line is how we express who we are in our church, and do new people. You have to. We have had Greg Atkinson on this podcast before, and there's other people out there that do these things where they walk into a church and they're like secret Santas. They're secret shoppers. They're looking to see
secret Santas.
Is that what it's called? I don't know. No, that's like a Christmas giveaway.
Yeah, that's
thing
a Christmas
party.
different thing. But secret shopper.
Secret shopper.
That would be a more appropriate.
That would be much more appropriate than secret Santa.
Does not come in.
Although Santa could come into your church, I guess, and see if he's rejected, or it depends how progressive you are. But but yeah, I mean, you walk in, you've got to be thinking, okay, if I'm a new person, what's my impression of this, and what do I understand what this ministry is or this name is? Do I understand these different things? And believe me, I just had a new person who I kind of had some contact with before, and I told her, well, if you come, give me some first impressions, and she did, and a couple of them surprised me.
Yeah.
And I'm always looking to see, I'm always trying to see from the filter or the eyes of a new visitor.
Right.
I still miss things.
Not too long ago, I was part of a first impressions team that they had put together. And the whole goal was to try to wipe away any knowns that you have and approach the facility as though you're a first-timer and just kind of seeing what you observe. It's kind of like a lot of times when you're an insider, you become an insider inside your own home often, where that crumple of that pile of clothing in the corner completely disappears after a month or so.
The stain on the table or...
it just... Right. So it's you got to force yourself to take an outsider's view. So yes, so language. We were talking language, and how you communicate. And we got a little note here that says clarity trumps cool every time.
Every time.
So be clear and potentially boring.
Well, you could be creative. I think you can be creative, but it's got to be clear.
Right.
Anyhow, all right. So shall we move on here?
We shall. So we're talking about 6 things that let you know that whether you're an insider focused or 6 indicators.
Yeah.
So number 2.
High giving per head. Now this is going to probably surprise a lot of people. High giving per head. So if you're involved in ministry, if you're on staff, or if you're a board member, a leadership team person, one of the things you probably are somewhat aware of is, okay, you're giving donations at your church, people that give. And this may sound a little counterintuitive, but in growing outsider-focused churches, in other words, churches that are trying to reach people, you can see that giving per head numbers can be around $20 to $30 per person. But in churches that are kind of stuck in this insider focus deal that we're talking about this morning, it's not uncommon to see giving per head numbers higher, much higher, between $30 to $50 per person. So you might say, well, what's wrong with that? You're a pastor and you're listening to this podcast going, hey, that's good. More people, people are giving. They're giving more money. Well, that's okay, but if you're really reaching new people and you've got new people coming into your doors and they're involved, it's going to bring that average down.
Yes, because the golden rule is the last thing to show up at church in a new member is their money.
Right.
And the first thing to leave in a longtime member is their money.
Yeah, exactly.
So
so
it's a maturity thing. If you get new Christians coming in, they're not used to giving, and so your numbers are going to be lower.
Yeah, and we're not going to spend a lot of time on this point, and you may even disagree with it, but again, if you've got newer people around, chances are they're not going to be big givers for a while until you teach them and share with them your needs and those kind of things. All right, let's just move on.
All right.
Number 3 is an indicator that you might be an insider-focused church. And again, keep an open mind, folks. We've got here no way finding. So in other words, you're looking for a place to take your kids. You're relatively new, or you're new to the church. You walk in the door. Where do I take my kids? I have no idea. No way. There's no signage.
Well, you go to the edge. It's obvious.
So, you go there and it might be it's in Building C.
Or the next gen crew.
Yeah, especially if it's a large church, Building C or whatever. But, where's that at? And so the point is you walk in and there's really no way to know where many places are in the church, including bathrooms perhaps.
Right.
Or, different areas.
We get to experience this quite a bit in that we try to go visit some churches that are using our services here in town.
Right.
And we're typically coming in the middle of the week, and we're trying to find the offices where we're meeting with somebody. And you're right. It's just like, wow, if I can see on Sunday morning, you kind of follow the crowd. But then if you have not a special need, but you need to take your kids somewhere.
Right.
If the signage is
it's
non-existent.
It's so important.
Yes, that was kind of I mentioned the First Impressions team. That was kind of, we spent some time hanging out in the parking lot, making our way in, and just... we really focused on creating very clear, debated, whether it's the sanctuary or the auditorium or the worship center or what do we call this, that the most people are going to understand what this is and where I should go.
We call ours the gathering place, and I don't know if people understand that or not, but that's what we call it. It's the sign says the gathering room.
I think we settled on auditorium.
Yeah.
And then children's area.
There you go.
Info center, and then bathrooms.
Yeah, that's important to have the clearer cut sign where to go to the bathroom. Yeah. So again, look this over, and again, you're listening to us and going, we're not insider, but you might be, and so look these things over. Very important. I had a new person tell me, I was getting feedback from a new person, and they said, and you have to understand, my church it's small, and it's basically made up of 6 modular buildings put together. And we won't get into it, but it doesn't look like it's a modular building, but it is. It's actually 6 buildings put together. And in my church, it doesn't look like a typical church. And when if you go up to it, there's only 2 or 3 doors, but if you're new, and this is what she was telling me, he goes, where do I go in? There's no sign that says entrance or welcome or anything. And I thought, that's interesting. I mean, I hadn't thought about that, but I mean, there is a front, and you could carry that maybe a little too far and say, well, it's obvious there's a front door here and there's people coming in. But I thought it was still a good point.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to put a sign up that says,
especially if you don't have the benefit of following someone out of the parking lot, you don't know.
Yeah. I think it's important. All right, let's move on here. We're moving on to point number 4 here. No clear spiritual maturity pathway. This is a Tony Morgan deal here. I can tell you that right off the bat. He's big on spiritual pathways. So what we're getting at is most churches are hoping that people outside of the faith will somehow or another jump into what's going on, and doing what everybody else is doing in the church. But if you're new, especially if you're new to the Christian faith, or coming to a new church, it may not be that obvious. And so the point here in this is, have you in your church clearly defined what you would like people to do, or what you'd like them to look like as they walk with the Lord, as they follow Jesus? Is there a clear path to steps
right,
where you can grow, where you can get help, where you can,
and probably the oldest and a really good model way back when was Rick Warren.
Well, that's what your church, and I was a big part of that in implementing that.
Which was the first base, second base, third base,
baseball
home plate.
diamond.
Yeah, and so it was obvious that, I got to get myself to first base.
Yeah, first base was membership, wasn't it? I can't remember now. I think it was membership, and second base was, discipleship, growing, reading your Bible.
Yeah, your shape.
Third base was getting involved in ministry. Fourth base was actually missions.
And inviting others. So, that's a model of a clear maturity path.
Yeah.
So you got to...
They're all a little different, but there should be, and I think this is a good point. What are you expecting out of your people? If you're in leadership, you want to help people, you're there to serve people, and, how can you help them grow? What's the path? Is it community groups? Is it this? And again, I'm not advocating all of it. I'm just saying, is there a path?
Right. So if I'm an insider-focused church, that probably wouldn't be too important because everybody's arrived, right?
Yeah, everybody's there, and, everybody's happy, and All right.
All right, number 5.
Some time we left here. So number 5 would be an indicator that you might be moving towards being an insider-focused church. You have very few baptisms or conversions or some indicator that your church, like even membership. I mean, if you've got membership classes, that could be one of them. You're having very few people involved in membership, making commitments to God, those kind of things. If you don't have a lot of those going on, well, it might be an insider-focused church.
Mm-hmm. And this insider focus, it's really something you need to kind of be. The natural state is to become an insider focused church, right?
I think, the idea is everybody wants to be comfortable. They want to get to know each other, everybody, and most people don't like change.
Right.
So you tend to have a little process that everybody's comfortable with, and you just kind of go through the routine.
Right.
And the criticism that churches that are growing tend to get is that they're just trying to reach people, and they're compromising. They're not really sharing the gospel and all that good stuff. Essentially, they're saying that if they were doing things right and preaching the word, they wouldn't be growing. And the bottom line is, growth is part of life, and you should have growth in your church,
right?
If you're reaching people. So I don't know. So if you don't have some activity of people becoming members, if you have that, or if you have baptisms and you're not having many baptisms, or asking people to make commitments to Christ and you're not seeing that, you might want to look at what you're doing. Just saying.
All right, and number 6 on our list.
That's another pet peeve: poor guest services. Poor guest services.
So what do we mean by that?
You walk well. So if you are relatively new or brand new to a church and you walk in the first time, where can you go to get some answers? And again, we touched on this a little earlier. Where do I take my kids? Where can I get some information on this church? Maybe you've done a little bit of research and you're comfortable going, but you might want to know a little bit more about them, or what they have, events coming up, or certain programs that they might offer. Where do you get that information?
Right. And I mentioned to you earlier before we started recording that I had my once every other decade visit to the DMV.
Yes.
And they've been classic for poor guest services and poor customer service, right?
Yes, they have been.
In your state, or
in every state,
in
almost.
every state, yeah. And I did notice it was actually very different. I just was there just yesterday, and one of the key things was, typically you come in and you could be taking a driving test, you could be registering your car, you could be doing all kinds of different things, and you've pretty much took a number and got in line and you waited. And you waited and you waited. They have taken some notes of this, and one of the first things they had was they had someone greeting me as I came in saying, "What did you need done today?" and they pointed me to where I needed to be in order to proceed with my specific needs. So I'm not advocating you go model yourself at the DMV, but there's they definitely had made some improvements over the years.
Yeah, it took them a number of years.
A couple of decades.
But they finally got it, and I'm very happy with it. I've been there actually probably a little more than you have, and I've been very happy with them, They have online stuff, and as well as when you have to go in there. And I think that should be the same with any organization, especially the church. I mean, let's not make it hard for people. Let's make it easy for them in the sense of being able to walk in and get some answers to their questions. I mean, you can say, well, being a Christian, you need to lay your life down and die on the cross and all that stuff, symbolically. And I understand that idea of Christianity, but you want people to be able to at least get in the door and have an opportunity to see what you're all about.
Right. So, I mean, this guest services thing, I think it begins with your greeter or
I think so.
That's the person that, if you don't have one, somebody at the door that as people arrive can kind of, and that you would have adequate support there such that if somebody says, well, I don't know where your kid's thing is, and I got 3 kids, and we've had really good greeters in our church in the past, and they would walk the person through that step, and just continue to serve that one family. So this person would need a backup up front because the next family came in.
Sure.
So
it's again, it's just to me, somebody walks in your house. If you have a guest coming over to your home, I mean, I would hope that you would do your best to show them where the restroom is, and show them where to sit down, and offer them something to drink, maybe. And so it's just, in my opinion, it's hospitality. It's common sense. It's you don't just ignore people when they walk in the door, but you go the extra mile, take a few steps, and greeter services or whatever you want to call it. I think it's something that should be easily spotted when you walk in the door. One of the things that I remember at our old facility at Alive Church when we were on Prince Road, that was one nice thing that we had, is when you walked in the lobby, there was this nice round kiosk that said welcome or something, and Ani would sit there and, tell you, or stand there and, tell you where everything was, answer all the questions. Ani was 80-some years old at the time. God bless her. And I've noticed when we moved into the new facility that it was a little different because it wasn't right there in the front. You had to kind of look a little bit. I don't know if they've done anything different lately or not, but it doesn't work there anymore. We've got greeters stationed out front, so they're getting you. So greeters, not long after you get out of your car, and then but it's got to be visible for people. All right, so look, this is all about just getting ready for new people coming in. It's the fall season's coming soon here, and hopefully you're going to have some new people walking in the door. If you're doing streaming video with us, you're probably going to get people watching your streaming, and then they're going to say, hey, I live in this area, I want to come check them out. So all these things, it's just being ready and just being open to some of this stuff. And I know that most people listening to this podcast, they want to reach people, they want to see people's lives changed. And so one of the ways to do that is right off the start, making sure that new people feel at home. Right. And you mentioned streaming. I think it's really important to apply these principles. You can do all of this online. Yeah, absolutely. You just, and a lot of churches, a lot of churches that are using us don't do a really good job with this. Yeah. So. All right. Well, look, we are out of time. So we'd love to get your feedback on this. And some of this stuff might have been a little hard to hear, or maybe you think we're just out to lunch on this. Well, we'd love to get your thoughts, positive as well as maybe not so positive. Just send us an email, support@streamingchurch.tv. That's one of our domains, one of our companies, one of our products, support@streamingchurch.tv. And again, if you don't like what we had to say, just address it to Steve. Yes. And if you like what we had to say, you can address it to me, Phil. So there we go. All right, we're done. So he's Steve Lacy across the table from me. My name is Phil Thompson. We hope that you have a great day, and catch us again for another edition of the Church Solutions Podcast. Take care.